All right. Well, I think we're gonna get going. I don't know if Karen's coming, but I think we're it, unless Karen's gonna show up. How you doing, Pat?
Good.
You're getting awful close to the front, I noticed.
I know.
Sneaking up.
I like to sit in the front row,
Well, you're welcome to.
Oh, that's me too.
Well,
Always.
we've got quite a little traveling to do, you know, we've got some big passages. And I want to be able to get to the end, for obvious reasons.
It's really deep.
So I'm at 15:6. Mark.
Mark. Ready? Pilot.
Right. Let's have our prayer. Lord, we are grateful to be alive. We are grateful for all the opportunities that we have to be your agents of grace, except for groundhogs, of course. And we pray that you would help us to give a fair reading to your scriptures so that we might deepen our lives and deepen our ministries through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay. Here comes Karen. Maybe not. Can someone... Oh, hey, Karen.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Come forth. Come away. We are at Mark chapter 15, verse 6. Somebody want to fire away?
How far?
Through 15.
How good. Now at the festival, he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and asked Pilate to do for them according to this custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish for me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about this Barabbas character. Who? Can you tell us who he was?
Didn't we talk about him last?
A little bit.
He was a political activist.
That's right. And he was guilty of
Murder.
murder. High priest is going to choose him over Jesus.
Well, they basically have murder on their mind, so,
Yes.
Right.
So they're going to be one with Barabbas.
yeah.
Birds of a feather flock together. Can we talk just for a minute about corruption? There was a New York State official that was arrested this morning. I want to say the lieutenant governor.
Lieutenant Governor,
The lieutenant governor of the state
New York.
was arrested for what? Not embezzlement, but
Accepting
I won't even
crimes.
say. But he's going to go to prison. Corruption.
My husband and I were talking the other day, it seems like it's so overt and it's like the way in so many countries. And even though it's not officially the way, because we can put people in jail for it, it still occurs. It just has to be hidden in trickery. Whereas in so many other countries, it's just acceptable. If you want a zoning permit, you pay the official. If you want your birth certificate, you pay the official.
So true, yeah.
You know, it's just, even though it's not written in their laws, you know, if you want to get this done, you have to pay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Our multinational corporations, you know, from the United States have to deal with this all the time.
Right, and they usually, some of them hire other companies to handle that for
Handle
them.
that, yeah,
So they can,
right. We know nothing,
yeah.
like Clink, remember him? That Clink, but,
Yes, I remember that.
what was his name? Sergeant Schultz.
Schultz.
Sergeant Schultz, I can't believe I know that. Okay. Corruption in the clergy?
Mhm.
Yeah. And do you think too that things just sort of, it's not a on-off switch, it's just sort of is subtle and it grows and it, you know, is that the way it is? I'm thinking clergy especially. Like the head of the Russian church is promoting the war in Ukraine, he's promoting it. Good idea, it's a good idea.
Well, isn't he in a hard spot too?
Right, but do you have to go there? I mean, what?
No. But it's like the Pharisees,
Yeah.
you know, they were afraid of their own skin.
Mm-hmm. And Jesus is such a different character.
Oh, he's walking into it, he's walking forward,
Yeah.
saying, I'd rather die for this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Zelensky's got that quality to it,
Yeah.
to him too. Don't you think?
I think any Ukrainian.
He's a dark.
would say it.
He's a marked man. You know.
Yeah.
It's just something. I mean, you've been like this too. I'm sure you've looked at this stuff for years, and I still can't get over it. Okay, shall we move into new territory? Okay. 16 through 20? Okay, thank you.
Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him.
Anybody, does anyone have something they want to say about this? I wanted to ask you about something. What do you see?
Well, the only thing I find, it struck his head with a reed. Now, if I got struck with a reed, I wouldn't think that I would get hurt. Was it a different kind of reed over there?
It must have been like a cudgel or something like that.
Or it just might have been sharp.
Yeah,
You know,
I think
like-
almost like, taking one of those little palm things back there.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But if they slashed you, if it was a reed and it was a little, you know, I've been stuck with a piece of straw and it hurt. I mean, I think it depends on,
Mm.
maybe.
Well, we've gone from betrayal to now this is mockery.
And bullying, kind of
Yeah,
like.
bullying, mockery, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the point was degradation. And I feel like that is an intense feeling of anger and frustration for the person who feels compelled to degrade. The person who's being degraded, I can't wrap my head around God on the floor being spat upon, being hit. And what struggle and restraint. Talk about keeping your eyes on the goal. I don't know how difficult. I don't know that I could have done that. I would have said, call the angels, now let's get rid of this bunch and the heck with the rest of the world and their sins. I think that's, to me, when I think about Easter, I think about, I never really felt like I understood understood all the while I was coming up what this meant until we started opening the scriptures and really looking at them. An almost impossible task to suffer and to be humiliated, knowing that you said, I will for you, for me. I just, I really can't, I can't, I don't know, it moves me every time and makes me so much more thankful than I have ever been, because this is a big deal. It is a very big deal. And like I said, I think I said this before, Passion Week to me has taken on a new significance when I think about all of the events leading up to, and to think that a couple of days earlier you were hailed as the king.
Yep.
It just is amazing. It really does show the dumbness of the sheep. You know what I mean? And I think since Christ experienced emotions like we did, I think that it's not the physical, it's not the bleeding from the crown of thorns, it's not the ripped open back. I think it has to be the wrestling with what I said I would do, and now I'm doing it, and I'm going to see it through. Still to come is my taking on all of these sins, and you still don't get it. I mean,
Yeah. This has the quality, thanks for that, Pat. This has the quality of something you said last week, I think, Kristen, that I'm paraphrasing, but there is throughout the Bible and here 2 stories going on, and they're being woven. There's the story of salvation, kind of overarching. You were referring to that, Pat, just now. And then there's the actual, physical, realities on the ground, so to speak. And you can talk about either one of those working together, but it's woven together, and that's really typical of the entire Bible. You see that you could pick out any story. The King David, he's sinning, he's going through, right, and all that kind of stuff. But you can see overarching another story. That particular story is embedded in a larger context. And my question is that true for all of us? There's a thought. Is that true for all of us? I mean, we go to the grocery store. We plant our gardens. We live our lives like they are living their lives. And yet, is there another story overarching that? Are we living in 2 dramas? I mean, is it just the Bible? You sitting where I'm going with this? Is it just the Bible? I mean, okay, your daughter is in a head-on collision. She almost dies. Things move forward. She decides to do this gracious thing of encouraging the church to have online, right? You know where I'm going with this? Someone in Kentucky, let's say, watches, and they become a Christian. They become, let's say, a writer, and the person's name is Martin Luther King. You see what I mean? Do we really know what's going on in our lives in that sense? Do we really know the kind of impact we've had in our lives? It's a good question. Has God actually been a part of our life, just like here?
And what I've heard her say is that, you have these highs and these lows, and we all have them too.
Mm-hmm.
You have the time for when you feel on top of the world. I mean, Jesus knew he wasn't, but, and the world thought, and then you have these times where you're like, you messed up and you're at the bottom. And part of what I hear, though, is that Jesus knows what it feels like as a person, because he's had the highest title. You know, it's all about, can we relate to him?
Mhm, mhm.
And if he's a superpower and God as I see God, I can't relate to him,
Right.
I can't understand him.
Yeah.
But if I know he went through the same pain
Yeah.
and shame and suffering and the worst degradation
Yeah.
that anybody who's gone through, I've never gone through what he's going through.
Right,
But
right.
there are people who have been beaten to death
Mhm.
or murdered or, you know, just horrifically injured. And if they're praying to God, he knows what they're going through physically.
Right, right. Yeah, you make me think, it's such a good point. You make me think about like AA, they're gonna meet in 40 minutes. I would be willing to bet that there's not a single person in that AA room that's not there, that's only there because of someone else who went through hell. A similar hell. So the question is, maybe that's useful too,
Oh, it is,
right? I think that's why we wear crosses.
yeah.
That's the whole point of the cross,
You
isn't
learn-
it?
It's always what
It's
it
redeemed. It's redeemed.
But you also learn the most about yourself at your
Yeah,
lowest
yeah.
places,
It's really something, isn't it? Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I wanted to ask you too. Yeah, it was really good. I wanted to ask you too about the nature of change. This is at this point, you know, Jesus has been preaching and miracles have happened and so on. He's bringing in this kingdom, right? That's his favorite topic. The next favorite is money. That's interesting, I think. Power. So he's bringing in this kingdom, and it's being met by this stuff. How does change take place? I mean, how does real change take place in you, in society, in your families? Does it take place because you put the hammer down? Is that what makes the change? Is it by brute force? That's what's going on here. Or is real lasting change accomplished in some other way? What moves you? What moves people?
I think what moves me is love and compassion, like something like what Martin Luther King did or what people do when they take a direction. You know, I think you've talked about it. You just have to take a little change. But where you end up later. What I don't know how to handle is the kind of change like war, those kind of things. I don't know how to handle that, where I should be. You know, should I be pulling out a gun and fighting, or should I be on my knees and
Right.
praying? I feel really torn when it's that kind of
Sure.
change.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning, is the wars that have happened in Europe from 1900 on. You know, the French against the Russians, the blah, blah, blah. You can just go ring through the changes. And now it's NATO, it will be, I think, NATO versus Russia. You know, has it solved anything? It's a good question. Maybe it has some things, but it is. And the money spent, the lives lost, the families ruined, the communities ruined. I mean, has have any of those things accomplished anything redemptive?
I think when you said, I think it was last week, or maybe you said it before that, and repeated it a couple of times, I do not think that we move easily toward change. But I think that God knew us well. You said this, the book is about love. I think that is the first step. And I think it is about the delivery. When I look at Ukraine, I see in people who never had it appears, that total commitment and inclination to be willing to march into hell and beyond for what they have achieved, their nation. There's a true love for their nation. There's a true love for their people. And I think that is a powerful motivator. Look at this chapter, for God's holy sake. This is all about the laying down of oneself for love, and not the philosophical greater good. It is about love and compassion. And I'm sorry, that moves us. That moves us.
Yeah.
That can keep us. It can sustain us. And I think it breaks down the walls and puts the chinks in our armor that allows change to affect us and motivate us for good. Listen, it amazes me. I mean, clearly God made us, so he knows us. But it amazes me how he weaves that love throughout the scriptures. You can see it. You can see it right up to the end and then beyond. I feel the New Testament is embraced and accepted because of the love.
And is that already in us, I think, is that what we're all hoping for, is that love is going to be there? Sorry?
The word love wins. I mean,
Yeah, does it resound in us, like a tuning fork?
yeah.
I kind of think it does. Yeah, so I want to ask you another question, and that is we talk about Jesus dying for sinners. That phrase, is he dying for these people who are beating him up?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. He's dying for who?
Yeah,
I mean, he's dying
yeah.
for
The whole-
everyone has that chance.
He's dying for sinners,
Yeah.
including
And
the ones
that's-
that are beating him up right now.
Right,
Yeah.
and including the best of the best.
Yeah, sure.
For the Mother
Sure,
Teresa's of the,
sure. Yeah, the best of the best are the ones that usually know that they're flawed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, the people
Right.
who did it.
Yeah, so Jesus is dying for sinners, including the ones who are beating him up and are going to crucify him.
I think the hardest thing is that you never know when it is the change, though.
Yeah, say more. Yeah,
Well,
that's
I mean,
dynamic.
you have to, time has to go by, and you have to be still alive to look back
Yeah.
and say, did it change?
Yeah.
Or am I or a group of people still the same as we were?
Yeah.
Because many times you say, oh my God, I remember when I was a kid and that was going on and it's still going on. Why didn't it change even though, we had these wars and we had these protests and we had all these things?
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe we have, it'll be, not that I have any grandchildren, but people's grandchildren's great-grandchildren, great-great-great, before anything, they might see
Yeah.
what's going on today and say, oh, that did change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do we have the eyes to see it too? Right. I miss it a lot. We're gonna have a black woman on the Supreme Court. That's whether you like her or not. It's still kind of like wow.
But that's a change, but will it make a change?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Right? We don't know. Okay, well, let's keep moving. I'm task oriented today.
Okay.
You'll never see that again. Okay, let's take a look at 21 through 32.
A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it, and they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each would get. It was the third hour when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 robbers with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So, you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. He saved others, they said, but he cannot save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel. Come down now from the cross that we may see and believe. Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him.
Okay, thank you. So tell us a little bit about Simon of Cyrene. What else do we know about him?
Father,
Yeah, he's the father. Who is the father of?
it says Alexander and Rufus, but
Uh-huh.
I don't know who they are.
Uh-huh. Well, that seems to be a pretty long description, doesn't it, for this narrative? They're kind of pumping the brakes here. And, he's well known. You know, we've talked about history and historicity, and this is, and the third one is it's Christian traditions is what I want to get. This is history. They're naming this person. Not only are they naming him, but also his family. His family's known. His kids, right? That is an historical reference, we would say.
So why do you think Mark put it in?
I would imagine they went back to Cyrene and started church.
So if Mark felt it was important to say who the man was, yeah.
Yeah. Rufus is actually in the New Testament. We don't know if it's the same one, but so. At the hospital, they used to call me Dr. Rufus Mafufus. I'd be on the intercom if there was trouble. Dr. Rufus Mafufus, we'd like you on second floor. I have to run up there. Have my own mug. Yeah, so why is he carrying the cross? What's going on? Why is he doing that? Why did they compel him?
I don't know, but in like the couple movies I saw, it's because Jesus was falling down, like he had been so beaten it was hard to carry his own cross.
Yeah, they beat him up so bad that he can't carry it.
That's-
He can't
I
carry
don't
it.
know if that was just Hollywood or,
Well, for some reason, he can't carry it anymore, and so somebody else. Simon's gonna carry it. He's been beaten up so badly he can't carry it. Yeah. Okay. And Golgotha, place of skull. Some biblical scholars say that was also the town dump. He's out in the garbage.
Is that where all the crucified people were lined up?
Yeah. They took him out there. Yeah. There's a gate in Jerusalem that goes outside the wall, and it's the garbage gate. They call it something else too. Kind of the sewage gate. He went out that way. Yeah. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. You get so caught up.
there's a lot of threes.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of
right.
numbers.
Yeah. You get so caught up that you don't even, it's like great actors, great directors, great producers. They see the perfect movie and they've gotten so far away from it. They've gotten so far away from the core of who they are. They can't even recognize a great movie when they see one. And here are the religious of Jesus' day talking about the Messiah. They know the Old Testament like the back of their hands. A lot of them have memorized the Old Testament. They've memorized it. It's all been codified. It's all been, the law has been, a hedge has been put around the law and another hedge around it just to make sure you don't break the law of God. They're at the Wailing Wall. They're praying every day. Their entire mindset is about following the law of God, and they totally miss it. He's standing right in front of them. Totally miss it. How's that possible? How's that possible? You know, I was thinking about like January 6th. How could you possibly enter that building and call yourself an American? It has that quality to it. It's just flabbergasting. You call yourself an American and you're going to enter that building and desecrate that building? But that's what can happen.
And that's humanity. I
I
mean,
know it.
we're messed up.
Right?
Right?
We are messed up. I remember one of my friends, Lee Hughes, has got his painting right over my desk. This big painting, a beautiful painting. So he's dead now, but he was a very highly regarded artist in New Jersey. And we became friends. He was a spectacular alcoholic. And we became really good friends. He lived right down the street from me. And lived in a garage, an unfinished garage for 23 years. And that's where he painted. Anyway, you get the picture. And looked kind of like Walt Whitman, that kind of a look. And one day, he just showed up at church in his overalls covered with paint. And people in the church gasped. And one of my elders in the church, I could tell you her name, but I won't. She said, "We don't have people like that in this church." You know, it's like,
Was he living in the garage?
yeah, he was in the garage. He had a little cot, and all his paintings were hanging from the ceiling, and it was something. A brilliant man. For him to go from that to come to our church, that's a long distance. It may have been, 300, 400 yards, probably 400 yards, maybe more than that. But that's a long walk. And so here it is, you're gonna, oh man, it broke my heart. Whew, that broke my heart.
You
Pastor.
had a lot of sermon fodder for a few weeks.
What's that?
You had a lot of sermon topics for a few weeks after that.
I was ready to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that did
Did
it.
someone?
I literally wiped the bottom of my shoes when I left there. Literally. When I left, my last day at that church.
But did someone escort him out, or one of the church elders or ushers, did they escort him out? Or
No, they just ignored him.
Oh.
Like he's the plague,
So then he didn't.
Oh man, Jesus overturning money changers?
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I confronted her about it, but the rest of the leadership, they were the same. Yeah, we don't have people like that in our church. Yeah, okay. How about a beat up and bloodied Messiah? How'd that go? Anyway, it gets me going, obviously. We talk about change. For a lot of people, it takes a lot of courage to change their lives. A lot of courage. And if we have to recognize that. Somebody who's willing to take that walk. I'm thinking of the people over here in this room, to take that walk through the building and wind up here. That's a long walk. All right.
It's a life affirming walk.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's got to be. You got to be like the father with the son that the father runs. He recognizes what a road that was for his son. I think we have to do that too. All right, so a couple other things. Yeah, we got time. We're doing fine. What is missing in this story? Do you know? Tell me about the thieves, the robbers that are crucified with him. Is there anything missing? Did you notice? Just
You don't know their names.
don't know their names. What do we know from the other Gospels that's not here?
That one of them asked to be in, that he did not be forgotten.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. This very day you will be with me in paradise. Right? That's a paraphrase, but it's close. That's not here. Wonder why? That seems like a pretty big story, don't you think? I would say so. People talk about it all the time.
But yeah, nowhere in these verses does Jesus speak in this section.
Right. He's silent.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah. What are they doing? What is going on with the?
They're mocking him.
They're more mocking.
Yeah.
Anybody else mocking him?
The scribes.
Yeah. Scribes, chief
regular
priests
people.
mock him.
The other crucified people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you want to mark up your Bible, one of the things I do is I just circle common words, keep circling them, and then I tie them together. Then you get the thrust. They're using the same word over. Mark is in this case, over and over and over. So we get the general idea. How does this link up with? How does this mockery and so on link up with the Ten Commandments? I'm thinking of the first 5 or 4.
What do you mean by linked up?
Well, how do they compare? How does what's going on compare with the? I mean, we're saying that. I think it's fair to say that Mark and the other Gospels are presenting Jesus as the Messiah, that he is the Son of God, that he's connected to God in some intimate way. So let's see what it says. I'm looking at Exodus 20.
They're using his name in a wrong way. King of the Jews.
Thou shalt not kill.
You shall not kill. You shall have no other gods before me. That's a bad one. These are people that knew the Ten Commandments like the back of their hand. You shall not make for yourself a graven image.
I really think this is a good example of the struggle of the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. They knew the letter of the law, thou shalt not have other gods before me, and that's what they're hanging on to as they're covering for doing what they did, of semi-righteousness. But
Yeah.
somewhere in there, I think, is that prickling and inkling that, not so sure. Not so sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You make me wonder. Can love be codified? Can love be put into law?
No.
So we got a little problem there, right? Can love be codified? A really good question, I think. I don't have an answer to it, but love is a funny thing. Grace is.
And the Ten Commandments, there's no emotion involved. It's just with law, everything goes by the law.
Yeah, well, except that it also says, I hear that, but it also says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? And your neighbor as yourself is implied for sure. So you got that over here. It reminds me of a certain country, the United States of America. We have inalienable rights. Inalienable. You can't take them away. It's part of what it means to be human. is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How are you going to codify that? We have a similar issue here in the States. I mean, it's beautiful, and I think, if we struggle, it's worthy of struggling with. Okay, so, all right, so those who were crucified with him also reviled him. Okay, so we don't have the penitent thief, as they say. That's going to come in the other Gospels. They're going to add that. They're going to add that. Wonder why. All right, so 33 through...
I'm not sure if I just have a question.
Sure.
Or a comment. We talk about the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and it was always, the myrrh was going to be
Yeah,
to do, the wrapping and
Yeah.
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. So why do they say here they offered him wine mixed with myrrh? Was that
It's
to put him out?
yeah. It's a painkiller.
Okay.
Yeah, and he rejected it.
Right.
And he rejected it. Okay, yeah. No fentanyl.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so 33 through 39.
The death of Jesus. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, listen, he is calling for Elijah. And then someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, truly, this man was God's son. There were all... Is that the last?
That's good. Yeah, thank you, Karen. Okay, it's high noon. And it's dark over the whole land.
I think that would give somebody pause.
Would me.
Yeah.
And this is, what else is going on that we hear from the other Gospels? It's dark, and what else happens when Jesus dies? There's an earthquake, right? Yeah. That's not in Mark?
But he does say about the temple curtain being torn.
That's right, yeah.
And some study I once did said that's a really thick thing. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a curtain like we
Yeah.
think of.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. That's a great point, right? What's the deal with Elijah? I mean, they didn't hear him, right? He said, Eloi, Eloi. And they thought he was saying Elijah, so we're not going to listen carefully here at the cross, apparently. Maybe he mumbled it, I don't know. But they're waiting for Elijah to come down and pick him up. Wasn't Elijah the prophet that God picked up? The chariot of fire? Isn't that who it is? At a Passover meal in a Jewish household, isn't a seat reserved for Elijah? Just in case he comes back, we're ready for him. The table set for him. Yeah.
What was also the building of the booths? They wanted
The
Building of the booths, they wanted one built for Elijah, one for...
Yeah, right. Moses. Right. This idea of coming back, saving. They got it wrong, but that's what they were talking about. They got it wrong. It's kind of nice that people get it wrong in the Bible, isn't it? And what do you think about Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani? My God, why so is it? What do you think about that?
At that moment, he felt totally abandoned by God. Why didn't God rescue him from this horrific situation?
Yeah,
It's human qualities.
human. Was it true, too? I mean, was he, what do you think? Was he abandoned?
Was he like,
What, he says he's been forsaken. Was he actually forsaken by God? Or was it just a feeling? It was his perception? Or did it, I mean, how real is this?
Let me ask you, a while back, I read that, as you said, everybody was very well versed in the Old Testament, that anybody who heard this would know the following sentences that would follow that. There's more to it, that it was almost like he's telling them something and they would understand what he's referencing.
In shorthand, it's almost like shorthand, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely right, yeah.
So what would be the rest of that?
Well, he's, throughout all of the Gospels, he will refer to Old Testament as it was written, as it was written, as it was written. And the religious leaders definitely knew what he was talking about, what he was referring to. Whether they agreed with it or not is another issue. But yeah, there's no secret here as far as him talking to the religious leaders, and maybe the lay persons too. If they're good Jewish believers, they know too.
So what I'm asking is, he might not really have felt forsaken. He's just, I don't know because I don't know what follows in the Old Testament, what follows that.
Yeah, it's Psalm 22. Psalm 22.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So does it mean?
Well, it's the suffering servant of God. That's the role that he's taken on, is the suffering servant of God. Yeah. Does God suffer? Does anything about God suffer? And I think the answer is a resounding yes.
I definitely think that was the moment where it's very clear that God cannot look upon sin. And he became it at that moment. All sin was on his sacrifice. And I believe that when he said, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" is that he felt that God could not look on the sin sacrifice that he had become.
Yep.
That must have been excruciating for him
Yep.
as God, but he chose to do it.
Yeah.
He chose to do it. So I acquiesce, yet I suffer the ultimate, I don't know that I would say abandonment, but I would say to feel that God could not look on what I chose to become.
This is the difference between what Jesus is going through and the other two thieves are going through.
Yeah.
They are suffering too, and they certainly could have yelled out too, my God, why have thou forsaken me?" They could have. And that's legit, right? Of course. But there's another big story going on with Jesus. He's playing out a role of salvation that's been promised from the time of Adam and Eve, really. That story is moving. Human activity is going on too, like with these thieves, they're doing their thing, right? But there's theological weight, if I hear you correctly. There's huge theological weight beyond a person being crucified in Jerusalem.
And I think, I think this signified the end of the law and the end of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament. That's kind of really beautiful in light
Sure.
of
Yeah.
everything awful that's happening,
Mhm.
you almost say it's right in front of you.
Mhm.
You know, this is living, dying proof
Right.
that living by the law will not save you.
Mhm.
Now, the sacrifice has been paid for, and now change must
Right, and that's St. Paul. St. Paul is the one that makes that argument, makes that clear. Because it wasn't working for Paul either.
Right.
He was following all these rules and so on, just a codification of God and God's way. It's not working for St. Paul. It's not, and hasn't worked, I think, for a long time for him, as also it was the case for like Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea. You can talk about these guys, and they see in the death of Jesus, it is a significant change. It's a earth-shaking change with how God is going to relate to human beings. It's a paradigm shift. I couldn't come up with that last week. It came up a couple days later, I think. Or was it the same day?
It was that afternoon.
Was it? It rose,
I suggested seismic shift.
which is excellent. Seismic shift. What did I just say? Paradigm shift
Yeah.
of how God is going to relate. If you got couple more minutes, it's 5:02. Because I wanted to get to this two other things that are of note to me. One having to do with the curtain being ripped from top to bottom in the temple. That curtain is the one that's separating the Holy of Holies, right, from everybody. The hoi polloi, as my grandfather would say. What is the significance of that? When Jesus dies, it is ripped from top to bottom.
I think it might refer to the fact that the Jews are, they were this chosen people, and they were now God's kingdom is available to everybody.
Yeah. Beautiful. Anybody else want to add to that? Yeah, anyone, in other words, the Holy of Holies has now come to you. Right? Rather than just one, the high priest goes in once a year, makes, atonement for the nation. This is, again, a paradigm shift that this is part of the light going into, and being refracted into the world. God is on the loose.
That's good.
Now, this whole gospel of Mark, there's a fancy word called an inclusio. In other words, it's like good movies and good books and good music kind of goes in full circle. When Jesus, and this is the case in Mark, which is, I think, wonderful, there's a splitting. During the baptism of Jesus, there's a splitting, there's a rending, ripping is the word, a ripping, when he comes out of the water after he's baptized. And what happens with this ripping? What gets ripped? The sky. So the gospel begins with this ripping. I mean, you can fill in what you think it means, but I think part of it is that what is going on in heaven, that community in heaven, which is blocked, right? When Jesus begins his ministry, that distance has been shrunk, and now heaven has come to earth, right? Your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, right? We get that, or Jesus gets it, because of this shift. So that community, which could be a gated community, we don't want these idiots down here anywhere part of our life. I don't know what the discussion was up there, but there must have been some kind of discussion. We are not going to involve ourselves with that community, the community of heaven. We're not doing it. Can you imagine? That would be a good little book, right? Good little novel, that conversation. And around the table, right? The table was up there, not here, but I don't know how it happened up there, but there was a decision made. We're gonna send someone down there, and then the discussion went further. I imagine. Well, who? Oh, let's send our best, right? To these malcontents. I mean, it really says something about how classy heaven is. I think that's a classy thing to do, and of course, it comes with a very large cost. And so anyway, Mark begins with a rending, a ripping. It's really a violent term in Greek. And the gospel basically ends with a ripping as well. And Mark also, the Gospel of Mark, not the other Gospels, but Mark especially, no Jewish person knows, including his disciples, no Jewish person knows who Jesus is throughout. Did you know that? Not one. There's only two groups that recognize Jesus to be the Son of God. And here we've got the centurion, right? That's the first one. That's the first human to recognize who Jesus is. Surely this must be the Son of God, right? That's the only human in the Gospel of Mark that sees Jesus or recognizes Jesus for who he is. What's the other group? You know? It's the demons.
Oh, yeah, the demons.
The demons know who he is.
Right.
And this one guy.
Right.
This one guy knows. There are no Jewish people in the Gospel of Mark that recognize Jesus for who he is. Not one. Let that sink in.
But the centurion is not named.
He's not named. That's right. That's right. He's not named. Wasn't there a movie called The Robe?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Was that what that was about?
Yeah,
No, I never saw it.
I think so.
They
Gamble for
they gambled for his clothes, and this guy got his Jesus's robe, and I can't remember anything else. But but he's not named. This hated person, this centurion, this occupier. They hated these people. He gets it. Life is mysterious, isn't it? Our lives are mysterious. Who gets it? Who doesn't get it?
Maybe because he wasn't threatened by it.
Yeah,
It's not his God.
yeah. And everybody's looking at this, right? You got bystanders, you got all sorts of people, you got the religious types. They're all watching this. He's watching it. It's like watching an accident. Everybody's got their own take from this thing, and for some reason, how would this guy even know to say that? Surely this was the Son of God. I mean, where do you learn that?
And what did he do about it?
And what do you do about it? Exactly. They won't tell us. So that's our little study. So, huh?
This is great.
It was good.
Well, you guys have been great. This is a lot of, yeah, you're really good. I love doing this with you guys. You're so good at it.
Well, we'll do it again after a couple of weeks.
What do you mean?
We'll have another session down the line.
Yes. Well, I'm here to serve you, and I'm.
So what are we having for lunch?
I'd love to give you some lunch. Steak sandwiches at my house. Well, I am happy to do something if you want, and I'll take on anything. I won't do. I'm not. I just, with one exception, Pat. And I'm sorry, it's Revelation. I mean, I could do some of it maybe, but I would just be goofing around and not. I don't know enough really to do that justice. I just don't.
Well, I don't need to start up right away, but maybe take 2 or 3 months off and do it again.
Because I think we
Take
did something
your
there last summer, right?
I'll be retired by that time.
Did they?
That could happen.
Not if I can help it.
I'm trying to retire. And so, yeah, the leadership of this church thinks it's funny to keep extending what they want me to do. So, we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
How did they keep Revelation at Calvin College?
They didn't.
They did.
Well, John Calvin certainly has a commentary on the book of Revelation. There's amillennial, right? You know that. Basically, we have no opinion. He's coming back, but that's about all we know. And coming back how, and are we going to recognize him like we did last time?
They took a lot of notes.
Are we going to miss him again? Embarrassing.
Is there any
Let one crucify.
particular reason?
Well, it's the